This is the third racing game in my series for ranking every kart racing game. As you can tell by the infrequency of the video uploads for this series, these are just a side hobby, as most of my time is consumed by relics. Today we're talking about a little known racing game called Nickelodeon Kart Racers 2 Grand Prix.
That seems a bit long.
You're right. Roland, any ideas? Something iconic. Something you'd look at and think, yep.
That's a Nickelodeon racing car game, alright.
So
we're going with the Nickelodeon Kart Racer 2 Grand Prix.
You're a Grand Prix.
Hey, I hear you ask, what about Nickelodeon Kart Racers 1? Well, to be honest, I've not played that game yet, but I will one day. I have actually purchased the third installment just this morning though, so that will also be a kart racer that features in the future. The reason I've chosen this game next is because I just happened to have played it recently, so it's still fresh in my mind. The game doesn't have a story mode like CTR, it just has Mario-style Grand Prixes.
You're a Grand Prix.
It has the usual side distractions too, such as battle modes, single races, time trials, and challenges. Challenge mode is the closest this game comes to a story mode. You complete some missions to unlock goodies, and each mission path ends with the boss battle to unlock the boss as a playable character. Challenge mode operates almost identically to Toy Story Racer's gameplay loop, and the challenges are quite similar to that game. I will talk more about Toy Story Racer in the next video, but essentially the challenges are things like win a race without being hit more than a certain amount of times, complete 10 boosts in a track, beat the clock, hit the targets, collect these items. They're decent challenges to be fair, and it takes less than 2 hours to beat them all, meaning that they don't overstay their welcome. They also help the player understand the tracks better as you learn more about shortcuts from these challenges that will help you in the Grand Prixes.
You're a Grand Prix.
I think it's pronounced Grand Prix.
You're a Grand Prix. Roland was very insistent that it would lose something if we went with the original pronunciation. You're a Grand Prix.
Now onto the actual race mechanics. While it draws 75% of its design from Mario, I really like the 25% that it does itself. Everyone knows how Mario Kart plays. Well, this plays basically the same, except the rubber banding is a little bit less annoying. The cast of characters is really good, but where the game really stands out is that you can put out a 4-player team for every race. A driver, a chief, and 2 engineers. The driver is obviously the stats for controlling the vehicle, but each vehicle is customizable with unlockable engines, exhausts, tyres, and paint jobs. These pieces can all be used to edit the stats of the vehicle. The Chief is your primary power-up, which ranges from attack powers, such as directly being given a weapon, defense powers such as shields that protect you from attacks, currency powers for more coin to spend in the shop, and finally, speed power-ups to make you go faster for a short period of time. To gain access to your primary power, you need to collect slime or slime tokens. The slime is just green goo that is in random areas of the map. You just simply drive over it. The longer you make contact with the slime, the more slime you collect. Slime tokens are like Mario coins, but for the slime power-up. Simply collect a coin for a predetermined boost to your slime. And the last member of your team are 2 engineers that provide some passive buffs, such as longer boost effects, more slime gained from coins, quicker recovery from being hit, etc, etc. The OST is fine but not amazing, and the tracks are decent but not super memorable. As you can predict, the tracks are basically themed around each of the Nickelodeon characters that make an appearance. Speaking of characters, here's a list of some of the characters that make an appearance either as a driver or team member. The weapons are fine, but also don't stand out too much either, although I will say that there's a very good variation of items to collect in races to keep you on your toes, and also the power-ups that you get from the engineers and chiefs are very varied. The vehicle stats are as you would expect in a racing game. Speed for your max speed, turbo for boost length, steering for general vehicle responsiveness, and drifting, which makes performing the Mario-esque drifts a little bit easier. Top speed is really the most important in the game, as the other 3 are less useful and more situational. As with top speed, it's a consistent buff throughout the entire race. Turbo is obviously more situational based on the frequency of turbo pads in a track, and is tied to how well you can drift boost as a player. Steering is kind of useless because even when I had steering at max versus minimum, I didn't really notice much of a difference because you spend a lot of your time drifting. I should imagine steering is a little bit more noticeable for players that don't know how to drift. Drifting is the second most useful skill, as it makes performing drifts handle easier and also slightly reduces the time it takes to get a higher boost. There are 4 levels of boosting: yellow, orange, purple and blue. Obviously when you build up to the color of your choice, it will increase the length of the boost you get from it. Blue is quite rare to get without having a high drift skill, but it gives you a massive boost compared to the others. And there are some engineers that greatly enhance the boost that you get from different drifts. You can customize your vehicle parts as mentioned earlier to prioritize the best stats possible. My advice would be top speed first, then drift, then turbo, and finally steering. Another skill you could do in the game is trick jumps that grant you speed boost upon landing. Again, the same kind of style that you'd see in the Mario games. Some drawbacks that hold the game back. Well, there's no voice acting at all, meaning the races, they feel a little bit lifeless at times, as characters don't react to boosts, or react to being hit, or react at all, to be honest. Online is also dead. You're lucky if you can find one other person to play with you after 10 to 20 minutes of waiting. As mentioned earlier, the tracks are decent, but not super memorable. Like, they're beautiful to look at, but the layouts are very, very typical and nothing really pushes the boundaries of kart racing. Also, if you want to purchase everything in the store, it would take way longer to farm the coins required than this game, to be honest, deserves. I have 6 hours of playtime and have barely scratched the surface of the shop. At a guess, I would say I've purchased about 20% of the items in the shop at this point. If you can convince a few friends to pick this game up, it genuinely is a good Mario time, but with more elements of strategy selecting your team to match your playstyle and the track being selected. It does deserve a bit more recognition, but unfortunately it isn't a game that many people even know about or have played. It does at least have a couch play option for up to 4 players as well, so even if you can't convince your friends to buy the game themselves, you can still have a good time playing it on your TV locally with them and maybe get them into the game. So for me, overall, it's a solid 8 out of 10 Kart Racer. It'd easily be a 9 if online wasn't dead, and also if the drawbacks that I mentioned earlier were better addressed. Even though it is very, very, very similar to Mario Kart, more similar to Mario Kart by far than CTR, the team aspect of the game is such a great mechanic that I hope is utilized in more kart races going forward, because, like, this really has no place being an 8 or 9 out of 10 kart racing game. These kinds of games are usually a 5 or a 6, but the team aspect is that good that for me it bumps it up to an 8. So where does it stack against the other 2 CTR games that have been talked about so far? It would have to go into 3rd place behind them, as despite it having the really good team aspect, the weapons, the tracks, and the lifeless characters stop it really shining above those 2 games that have excellent weapons, really memorable tracks, and a great roster of characters to boot. So, that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video of this series, which will be Toy Story Racer.